Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today I'm going to be talking about 15 modern Doctor Who stories that are worse than the power of Kroll. Now, if you watch my channel regularly, you know that the power of Kroll is kind of the poster child for this channel of bad classic Doctor Who stories. I'm not actually saying it's my least favorite classic Doctor Who story. I'm not sure what my least favorite classic Doctor Who story would be, but it's kind of the one that I talk about the most. You know, if you ever stop and think, what's Prowl's least favorite classic Doctor Who story, that's probably going to be the first one that pops in your mind because it's the one I talk about the most. So we're going to talk today about modern Doctor Who and 15 modern Doctor Who stories that are far worse than the power of Kroll. Because, let me be clear, I don't hate modern Doctor Who. Classic Doctor Who and modern Doctor Who both have highs and they both have lows. Some of the best Doctor Who episodes ever made are from the classic series. Some of the best Doctor Who episodes ever made are from the modern series. But it's different when you start looking at worst stories. I really could have titled this 15 modern Doctor Who stories that are worse than any classic Doctor Who stories. Because I feel like the lowest lows of modern Who are far worse than anything classic Doctor Who ever put out. All 15 stories we're going to be talking about today or worse than anything that's ever come out in classic Who. Worse than the Web Planet, worse than the Gunfighters, worse than Power of Kroll, worse than Delta and the Bannerman, worse than Time Flight, worse than anything classic Who ever put out. Except maybe the original version of Fix of Sontarans, but that's another story. So, also I might be a little brutally honest, because I'm just in a mood to be brutally honest. So there may be language. So I don't know if this will be a subtle video for work. We'll see. Starting in 15th place, and I'm also going to talk about, I'm not doing these in any particular order from worst to best. This is just kind of the order I wrote them down in. Though to be fair, the top three are most definitely the top three, far and away the worst. But other than that, they're just kind of in random order. But in 15th place is Last Christmas. I do not like Last Christmas. Other than Nick Frost being Santa Claus, which is pretty cool, and having Michael Troughton in it. It just doesn't seem like it knows when to end. It just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and it's got more twists than a M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like, seriously, another twist? Another twist? There's less twist than the song Twist. It just twist. Now, if it had ended with Jenna Coleman leaving here, with like the doctor, you know, when she finds out she's old, and it turns out she had just gotten old and couldn't go anymore, that'd have been a great ending. That would have been a great exit for Clara. It would have got Clara on out of the way, which I'm a huge fan of. That would have made Series 9 a lot better. But it would have been such a good exit for her, and it would have been a nice little twist I didn't see coming. And then they had to go and retcon that because Jenna Coleman decided to stay. So yet it was another twist after twist after twist after twist. And I'm like, okay, now I'm just lost and bored and unhappy. I've literally watched this episode once. If this was the first episode of Doctor Who I had ever seen, I would have never seen a second episode of Doctor Who. I don't like this, and it's my least favorite of all the Christmas specials. And there's nothing Classic Who has ever put out that's as bad as it is. Number 14, Legend of the Sea Devils. This could be the worst edited episode of Doctor Who I have ever seen. Seriously, trying to follow telesnap reconstructions of missing episodes is easier than trying to follow the editing of this. Like, seriously, I have an easier time watching the Space Pirates than trying to get through this. The editing makes no sense. I have a feeling this episode was originally intended to be longer. Because even though it's a special, I think it's closer to being like typical episode length, or close to it. I think it's under 50 minutes, the last time I looked, as I recall. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Like that scene when Dan's holding the sword, and he just, and like he cuts all the Sea Devils down. They just all, quick, how are we going to fight these Sword Master Sea Devils? That got him. That could be the most laugh out loud moment I've ever seen in Doctor Who. Ever. I was like, what was that? What the heck was that? And then there's the scene when the Sea Devil like super Mario jumps onto the ship. And somebody did a fan edit where it actually makes the Mario jump sound, the ee, when it jumps onto it. And I can't unhear that now. It's always there in my mind when I think about that scene. The story's not that interesting. I find it a bit boring. How come the Sea Devils feel more advanced in this story than they do in the actual Sea Devil story? It makes Warriors of the Deep look like Genesis of the Daleks by comparison. And Warriors of the Deep is not a good story. It isn't. It's not underrated. It's just not a good story. But compared to this Genesis of the Daleks level quality, it's just not good. The only thing I like they did is they kept the traditional Sea Devil design, basically. Instead of trying to update the design like they did for the Silurians, that's a whole nother video. They actually did keep the Sea Devils looking like the Sea Devils, and they actually did a really good job with the design. The rest of that's crap, and Dan, per usual, feels wasted. I like John Bishop, but I feel like he feels wasted. This is another one I don't think I'll ever go back to, unless I'm under some form of torture or something. Number 13 is Flux, and I am going to count Flux as a whole. I tend to count Trial of the Time Lord as separate episodes, but Flux I count as a whole, because in all of the episodes, what's going on with the Flux is too integral to the episode. Now, I think War of the Suntarans and Village of the Angels would have been great standalone episodes, and I get the impression they probably originally were if the scripts were done before pandemic stuff happened, and they would have made good standalone episodes. They make good use of the Suntarans in the episode 2, and it makes a really good use of the Angels in episode 4. And that's, if it had been a standalone episode, that would have been one of the best Angel episodes. Instead, we got that shoehorned in ending where the Doctor turns into a statue, which could be the dumbest thing that's ever happened in Doctor Who. Even worse than the Ballad of Johnny Ringo. And then we find out basically the Angels are a taxi service. Because God help me, whoever wrote that. Now, the person who did most of the main writing in it, also, she's great. I think she also wrote The Haunting of Villa Diodati, which I like. But you'll notice the co-writer on that is Chibnall, and I have a feeling his 2 cents is what threw everything off by 2 cents. And it just kind of... Flux is just mediocre. Has a lot of plot holes and a lot of stuff that never gets resolved. Like, here was the universe. Here is now the universe. How do they resolve that? No, they don't. Just, here is the universe. Good job, 13. Good job. Yeah, it's Flux is a mess. It's all over the place. I try to want to cut it some slack because of the really hard conditions they had to film that in, with pandemic levels happening and them having to do social distance. It had to have been hard to make Flux. Even with all of that in mind, I almost wish they'd just taken another year off and waited, because what we got was just a jumbled mess. Let me be perfectly clear. I've always called Trial of the Time Lord the weakest season of classic Doctor Who, and I agree with that, but I still think it's miles better than Flux overall. I actually don't mind going back and rewatching Trial. I don't want to go back and rewatch Flux. Even if I do also like episode 5 a fair amount, parts of it, I will admit. It has spots in it I like. I love watching Dan and Yaz and Jericho run around in the past. That's fun. But overall, the bad far outweighs the good. And yeah, I'd rather just watch Power of Kroll. The next one is the, what's it called? The Whatever Conundrum, which I just rewatched recently. And I did a whole video talking about that. And yeah, I'm just going to, just go watch that video. Because, yeah, yeah, that one's terrible. I mean, the main character I liked was one of the guest character, and he dies a few minutes into it. And then there's the one woman who's the pilot. Like, most of the guest cast in that are pretty good. The guy playing the android is good. The guy playing the brother, who's like an engineer, is good. But the woman playing the pilot, I just didn't like her as an actress. And there's that one line where she's like, yeah, you're right, bro, or you got it, bro, or whatever she says, bro. Like, seriously, I'm listening to that, and by comparison, the guy who played Saul Deed should have got an Oscar for Saul Deed, because Saul Deed is much better acting than that. Like, seriously. I could look at Saul Deed and go, Oscar, compared to the way she was playing this role here. And then the story's predictable. Of course she dies right at the, it's either going to kill her right after she finishes, or it's going to kill her right before she finishes. And then the brother has to step in. This feels a bit cliche. The pating design, I can't quite tell what they were going for. I mean, you could have made a really scary alien-esque episode out of this. Instead, they go for comedy with it, like a Baby Yoda thing, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Some of the actual set design looks nice, but overall, it doesn't work. Yaz actually has some really nice moments where she actually kind of questions the doctor's judgment, which I like, because she's not lovesick puppy Yaz yet. But, and then the doctor seems way too excited when she's explaining how the drive system works. I just wanted to hand her a towel or something. Yeah, it's just another example of Series 11 being, well, the worst series Doctor Who's ever put out, period. Next on the list is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Now, this one, unlike most of the ones on the list, is watchable. It's not all bad. It's still bad enough to be on this list, but I can get through it. I seem to be a little kinder toward it when I'm fresh off a rewatch of it. It does a good job of setting 13 up in this. She has a couple nice moments in this. She has a couple try-hard moments that don't work in this. I love the scene when she's making her sonic screwdriver, and Lord, if I ever meet a woman that smiles at me the way Jodie Whittaker smiles at a spoon. I love that scene. But then you have Tim Shaw, and he's not a good villain. The guy whose sister disappeared who tries to free him is an idiot, because he brings him there, starts recording everything, doesn't think maybe I should keep a weapon here. He just, I don't need a gun. I can handle this. I'll grab like a wrench or whatever. That's dumb. You do all this stuff to prepare. I'd have been there with a tank. Let him come out of here and come get me. The companions are fine, I guess, in it. 13 has that bit when she's telling Tim Shaw, leave this planet while you still have a chance, and I don't buy it. She's giving her try-hard speech, and I'm like, not buying it. Doesn't feel like the Doctor. And then her solution to the problem of teleporting him away sets up the problem with the finale. So this is once again the Doctor causing problems for herself later by making an error in judgment here, which is not something 13 does. Other Doctors have done this before. We talked about that on the channel. But yeah, while this one is more watchable than most on this list, I still think it's worse than anything classic Doctor Who's ever put out. The next one on the list is The Power of Three. It's a Chris Chibnall episode. Yay! It has a couple things I like. I like how it introduces Kate Stewart. I like that Kate Stewart is actually really good in this episode. The reveal of her being the Brigadier's daughter is nice. I enjoy that. I love the scene when Matt's doctor is just bored, when he's sitting there having to just kill time, and he's bouncing the soccer ball and painting the fence. That's funny. I enjoy that. The rest of it is boring and sucks. What's the mysteries of the cubes? And I'm sitting here going, don't care. Don't care. Is it over yet? Don't care. I've watched this episode 2 or 3 times. There's a whole lot of not caring going on. It's like they're dragging out the Amy Rory stuff. Like they should have just let Amy Rory stay gone after Series 6 or after the special. But they're dragging it out to get a few more episodes out of them. And that's what it feels like. It just feels like drug out padding that's boring. It's so boring. I can forgive a lot of things. I can't forgive boring. So aside from those couple parts I like, nope. Worse than anything Classic Who has ever put out. I'd rather watch The Web Planet. Next on the list is The Angels Take Manhattan. This one is just plain stupid. I knew right at the beginning when I saw that reveal that the Statue of Liberty was an angel, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have a Vincent and the Doctor jumping the shark moment, aren't we? My God, that's dumb. Now, there's a clever plan there of what the angels are doing to keep themselves fed, sending somebody back like that, and then the actual opening of the guy running into his future self, the detective, you know, it's pretty neat. But the jump the shark moment with the Statue of Liberty was too much. The sad ending of Amy and Rory, yet another sad companion departure, which is old hat even by then. I feel like it once again rewrites the rules of the Angels, I guess, because the Angels are really kind of one-trick ponies. I feel like they can't keep coming back like some of the other Doctor Who villains do, so they have to kind of reinvent them, and it usually doesn't work. The Angels have never been as effective as they were in Blink, ever. Now, I think they're pretty good in the Flesh and Stone two-parter, even though they're rewritten a little bit, it works. And again, if Village of the Angels was a standalone episode, I think it'd be really good. But what they're trying to do here just doesn't work. I don't care for this one. I've seen it a handful of times. I just find it uninteresting and boring. And you ever have one of those episodes that's so bad you just don't have words? There's going to be a few more of those to come. Next on the list is Night Terrors. Maybe I should call it Night Terrible, because that's what it is. I don't like it. I feel like I just made a Sheldon Cooper joke. I don't get into this one. The scene when Amy gets turned in, I don't really remember this one much. I think I've watched it once. I may have seen it twice. I remember I hated it. I think Amy gets turned into the doll, which is kind of creepy. And then the guy getting pulled through the floor. I think that's the one with the kids where they have to flick the lights. I did not connect with that one. Again, if this was the first episode of Doctor Who I ever saw, don't think I'd be much of a Doctor Who fan. I can't remember if this is season 5 or season 6. I'll put series 5 or series 6. I really don't remember. I think it's series 6. Either way, I just don't click with this one. It doesn't work for me. Other than the scene of Amy getting turned into the doll being really creepy, other than that, nope. I could rewatch Night Terrors, or I could not. And then there's the Battle of whatever. Does anybody care? I don't care. This is another one I think I've only watched once. I may have seen it twice. I think I've only watched it once. It was awful and a bit boring. And we're back to Tim Shaw, who is not exactly bucking for greatest Doctor Who villain ever, or even of Series 11. Not that there's much to choose from. Of course, the Doctor has to resolve the mess she started at the end of her first story, because she just started right off the ball making mistakes, where they think he's a god, and then she has to tell Graham, no, you can't kill him, and da-da-da-da-da, and then she talks about how Graham's grown because he doesn't get. I don't really remember, but I remember it's awful. It's really awful. Does anyone else really care about this episode? I don't. And next on the list is the Timeless Children. This episode sucks on so many levels that you almost have to admire it. How can you make an episode suck on so many different planes, but by God, Doctor Who can make it work. Chris Chibnall can make it work. Okay, let's talk about the retcon stuff first. It's dumb. It is so stupid to change almost 60 years of canon. And the only reason they do it is to fit the BBC's current agenda, to fit the narrative. The only reason the Timeless Children retcon exists is so they can have an excuse to create more diverse Time Lords and to fight the argument that some old school fans might put out that, no, the Doctor has always been like this. The Doctor has always been traditionally a white male. That's how Time Lord technology, that's how they regenerate. This is their way of saying, no. Don't be misogynist and racist. The Doctor has always been diverse with their regenerations. You've just never seen these previous ones. These are one you don't know about. See? When he first started out here, he was just a little girl of color. And you see all these other, that's it. It's in there just to assert their narrative so they can regenerate the Doctor into different genders and different races. Which, to be fair, I don't have that much of a problem with. I adjusted to it. The cat's out of the bag on that. That's why I don't really do videos complaining about it. It's there. They're not going to retcon it back. It just is what it is. But that's the only reason the Timeless Children narrative exists. And they even tied it in with the Morbius doctors. They're like, see, even in classic Who, the Doctor had incarnations before Hartnell, so our theory is valid, and I'm sitting here, having seen the brain of Morbius many times, looking at those previous 8 Doctors going, yeah, and every single one of those in the brain of Morbius are white dudes. Every single one of them white dudes. All of them. So, going by your logic, the Doctor has regenerated into white dudes like 20 times in a row? Just saying. And that's the only reason. That's the only reason the Timeless Children exist, is so they could retcon it to where there were more diverse Doctors in the Doctor's past that we've never known about, just so they can point and go, see, it's always been like this. And if you disagree with me, well, then you're a sexist and a racist. That's it. That's the reason that happened. Now, again, there was a time when I would have been bothered about a Doctor's ability to change genders and race. However, I like Missy. I like Missy a lot. Michelle Gomez is just amazing as Missy. And I accept Missy as a female Doctor. I'm not a female Doctor, but a female version of the Master. So it'd be hypocritical for me to accept her as a female version of the Master and not accept a more diverse Doctor. And I don't like being hypocritical. So that made the transition to, say, a female Doctor easier for me. My problems with Whittaker have never been her gender. It's been the fact that her writing was bad and she was miscast in the role. And again, for me, I know there are a lot of people that somehow want to retcon everything to where Capaldi was just hallucinating everything that's happened since he left. But that's kind of silly. They're never going to do that. To me, the genie is out of the lamp, the cat's out of the bag, and it's just canon now that Time Lords can change gender and race, and that's fine. I don't believe in trying to do the mental gymnastics you would have to do to fix that, despite the mental gymnastics they had to do to make the new retcon work in the first place. But it's fine. I accept it. I don't have an issue with it. It just is what it is. But I do want to complain that the upending canon like that did upset a lot of fans, especially old school fans. Now, that's not the only problem this episode has. It might not even be the main one. Another problem it has is it once again, for the millionth time in a row in Modern Who, wastes the Cybermen. Series 11 was doing a really good job with the Cybermen up to this point. I enjoyed the lone Cyberman a lot. It was a nice new take on the Cybermen. The actor playing him is great. I loved the haunting of Diadote itself. I thought they were good in Ascension of the Cybermen and how they built Ascension of the Cybermen up. I enjoyed that story a lot. And then they crapped all over it here. Just completely shit the bed right here. Then once again, they pretty much make the Cybermen the Master's bitch. There's a lot of that in Modern Who, where the Cybermen are just somebody else's army. They're just bored drones, basically. They're the Master's bitch. And, Ashar's like, this will not leave me while I live. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. And of course, the Master's like, oh, well. I'm like, oh, this ain't going to go well for you, Ashar. And so it completely wastes the Cybermen. And then we get the Cyber Time Lords. Oh, fuck me. Fuck me. This is like fan fiction stuff. So we're going to take the corpses of Time Lords, but they're going to regenerate. Corpses are why didn't they regenerate before they became corpses? Now that they're already dead, you can make them regenerate again. I don't understand how this works. This is like the logic. Whoever wrote this is using like the mentality of a 5-year-old. It's so dumb. Also, their design looks incredibly stupid. I mean, I get he's using it to mock the Time Lords with the headdress and the capes and the frowns. It's the Master mocking the Time Lords. I get that, but it still looks awful. And I don't like it. And I really wish they'd just leave the Cyber Time Lord thing from now on. I never want to see it again. And then the whole Deus Ex Machina ending of having to blow up all the ship, the Doctor having to have someone else save her because she's too much of a coward to do it. So someone else has to come in and press the button for her. And then again, the Deus Ex Machina of blowing up ship. We'll just press a couple buttons here, the whole thing blows up. It's been done so many times that Timeless Children is boring. Boring. And once again, the Doctor is helpless. And then how does she break out of the vortex? That doesn't make sense. I'll give it all my memories. We're talking about the thing that's like the repository of all the Time Lord minds. I mean, her giving it all of her memories would be like me going to the Atlantic Ocean and like taking an eyedropper and putting some drops in it and expecting it to flood California. Or going to, the back part of the Hoover Dam and taking like a shot of water and pouring it in and expecting it to break the dam. It's so dumb. But somehow she overloads it just to give us a really fast clip show of past scenes. It's so stupid and dumb and moronic and dear God, just on so many levels, one of the worst episodes it's ever put out. Definitely one of the most divisive. And here's the thing, Doctor Who shouldn't be divisive. It should be something that unites the fans, not something that divides the fans. You don't ever want to divide your fan base. And I get not everyone's going to like every episode. There are some people out there that aren't the hugest fans of City of Death or Genesis. No one's going to 100% love everything, just like some people like Time Lash. I like Time Lash, and most people don't. No one's ever going to 100% agree on an episode. Fine. But this one is like The Last Jedi of Doctor Who episodes, just dividing them right down the middle, and you don't want to do that to your fan base, especially just to push an ideology that there's no reason to push it. There's no reason to do that. So yeah, that's my rant on the Timeless Children. The next one on the list is Lie of the Land and Pyramid at the End of the World, or whatever it's called. The second and third parts of the Monk trilogy from Series 10. And they're awful. I actually don't mind Extremis. I actually kind of like Extremis. It's got some good ideas behind it. I like the ending. I didn't see that coming. I think it's clever. It kind of reminds me of like a digital version of the Android Invasion, where I think of that as like an analog version of this. So I actually do like Extremis. These two, I think I've only watched them the one time. They bored me. I just don't care. I mean, we're talking about one of my favorite TV shows of all time, my second favorite science fiction series of all time, and I don't care. Like the Doctor faking out, regenerating, I don't even remember why. Is there an actual plot reason why he does that anymore? Or is that just for spectacle? Or so they can use it in the trailer to make it look like he's regenerated, because they use that in the Series 10 trailer a lot. I don't even remember. The ending, I don't even remember. It's so bad. Again, I can forgive a lot of things, but not boring. Not boring. At least the Web Planet's not boring. Not compared to this. This makes the Web Planet look as exciting as the Crusade. Just saying something. Oh yeah, and Danny Pink just sucks. I never got into Danny Pink. He kind of sucks. And I never buy the relationship between him and Clara. Never buy it. So, let's move into the top three, which are most definitely the top three. The three worst episodes of Doctor Who ever made, by a mile. Let's talk about Fear Her. Wow. Who would have thought a Tenet episode would be one of the worst? But this one is awful. First off, I don't care much for the child actress, no offense to her. It's mostly that voice she makes when it's the creature talking through her, which might not be her fault. That could be a director decision. But that voice is grating. It's like claws on a chalkboard. Every time she talks, I just want to be deaf. Like, seriously, I'm like, let me put on the Ballad of Johnny Ringo so I can cover it up. It's bad. The story I don't really care for. It's boring. It has that one really neat scene when the Doctor mentions to Rose in the TARDIS while he's working about, I was the father once. That's a cool scene. The rest of it is utter garbage. Garbage. The bit at the end with the Doctor carrying the torch, it's so stupid, so dumb, so uninteresting. And I've seen this episode multiple times because I used to watch the Tenet era a lot. I've probably seen this episode at least 4 times. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment. Maybe I was punishing myself for something. I don't know what. But it's just uninteresting. Even the concept of the story I don't like. People disappear, the girl stuff disappearing into her Like seriously, I can't even talk. I hate this one so much, I literally don't know how to put it into words. It's one of those. You ever had an episode you hated so much you just can't even find the words? Like, I just legit can't stand this episode. It's just a whole mess of bad. Yeah, that's really the best way I can put it. And next on the list we have arachnids in the UK. What is it with Doctor Who episodes with spiders that tend to be terrible? I think the best one is probably Planet of the Spiders, and even it's not exactly a classic. I mean, the main reason it's remembered is being a regeneration story. It's one of the weakest Pertwee stories. But this one is just, again, there's not much interesting going on in it. I think I've only watched it the one time. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. And I can't think of a single classic Who episode where I'd be like, I'm certainly never watching that again. Even the Gunfighters, I might give another shot at some point. The Web Planet, another shot at some point in a few years. This one, never again. Never again. I don't understand the whole poking puck shots at Trump. The guy is obviously supposed to be a Trump stand-in. Why a British television show is taking knocks at a U.S. president, I have no freaking clue. The actor playing him actually does a good job with the character, but it doesn't make sense to do that. The Doctor's moral choices in this story are really dumb. This has been talked about in other YouTube videos on other channels about how she's like, no, you can't shoot that creature. Oh, it's dying. It's suffocating because it's grown too large. So instead of giving it a quick death, you're going to let it suffer. And then you're also getting on to the guy about his morality about possibly shooting the creature when you just killed a bunch of the babies. I can't remember if she suffocated them or blew them up or what happened. I don't know because I don't care because the episode sucks. But like she just killed like a lot of them, and then she's berating this guy about killing one like she's somehow better than he is. And instead gives the spider a much more gruesome death instead. The 13th Doctor is very spotty when it comes to her morality. She's really big on do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, this is just another one where there's just a whole lot of how the hell did this get made? How did this greenlit? How did this get greenlit? How did this get made? Which brings us into our number one video, what is quite possibly the worst episode of Doctor Who ever made. Kill the Moon. I think they should have called it Kill the Show, because it certainly tries. And yet it's another episode with spiders in it. Again, Doctor Who doesn't do these well. This is the episode where I'm like, how the fuck did this episode get made? I do not understand how this episode went through all the hurdles it had to go through, all the obstacles it had to go through to actually get made and aired. My common sense, logical mind cannot grasp this. Think of all the people this story had to go through to get greenlit to where it got made and aired. How? How did this episode get made? This is not a rhetorical question. I want to know, how did this episode actually get made? I mean, I get there's a lot of very dumb decision making going on because the episode is horrible. First off, the moon is an egg. See, immediately you stumble into, this is fucking stupid territory. This is incredibly dumb. And the egg, the moon, that is an egg, is about to hatch and give birth to a creature that might destroy the Earth. But wait a minute, we've been in the moon in future stories, like say the moon base. How do you explain the moon still existing then? Oh, the clever writer has the solution of, well, it's going to lay an egg that looks exactly the same as the previous egg. And again, I'm going, how the fuck did this episode get made? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I live in America. That is saying something. And then we have the part where the Doctor doesn't want to get involved in the decision making because the Doctor doesn't feel like it's his right to decide the fate of the Earth. It should be up to the humans to decide that, because if we all know, if there's one rule the Doctor has, is that he doesn't like to get involved. No matter what's going on, he doesn't get involved. That's the Doctor, we all know that. Instead, it becomes the Clara Show, which is all our favorite part of Doctor Who ever. That's why Clara is the greatest companion ever. That's why they're going to rename the show Clara Who, unofficially. That's why by the end of her run, she has her own TARDIS, her own companion, and Capaldi even says Clara Who in her final episode. So it becomes the Clara Show to create friction between them. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Now, what else happens in the episode? I don't really know. I don't really give a flying fuck, frankly, because it's just fucking stupid. The points I outlined have already pointed out why this is the worst episode of Doctor Who. Classic Doctor Who has never done a story that I just felt was completely stupid. I might not have thought it was good. I might have thought it was boring. I might have thought it was uninteresting or unnecessary. But I can't think of a single classic Doctor Who story that I think is just plain stupid. This one is dumb. It is the worst of the worst. It's not only the worst episode of Doctor Who, it's one of the worst pieces of television I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, Capaldi's acting is still phenomenal. Capaldi's amazing. But it's just bad writing. Bad writing. What I want to do is I want to find every single person who had to green light this episode for it to get made. I want to stand them all up in a line, and then I want to just walk down the line, slapping them all in the face. Every single one of them in the face, just down on the line until I get to the end of the line, and then I want to go all the way back to the front of the line and start over. Because it's terrible. It is awful. This is like fan fiction from a 4-year-old. Whoever wrote it should be ashamed of themselves. And whoever okayed it should be ashamed of themselves. I don't understand how anyone likes this story. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. Yeah, I think it's the worst episode of Doctor Who probably ever made. Although Arachnids gives it a good fight, and so does Fear Her. All three of those are like the unholy trinity, the unholy trinity of just god-awful Doctor Who writing. And I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get mean. So, I think those are 15 Doctor Who stories that are far worse than The Power of Kroll. Far, far worse than The Power of Kroll. And anything else classic Doctor Who has ever put out. I want to know what you think of this list. Comment it down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the year's out, and this video may actually cost me subscribers more than gain me subscribers, because I'm sometimes bluntly honest about these things. But that's fair. That's fair. So don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't. And if you did enjoy this video, I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me on that, there's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, and a link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching. Oh yes, before we get started, I almost did forget to mention about Power of Kroll. I'm sitting here talking about how it's the poster child, and smooth. Forget that. Yeah, Power of Kroll is so much a poster child of, the classic Doctor Who story I don't like, that literally, legit, when one of my patrons / subscribers sent me a piece of fan mail, he added in this card of Kroll from the Doctor Who battle card game, just as a joke. So, it's pretty well known. And the top 3 on the list, which losing my train of thought. It's really hot in here. Let me turn the air on a little.